pumpkins, and welcome back to the channel. In today's video or podcast, we are going to be talking about different kinds of psychic gifts and how maybe you can start to get into yours. The first thing that I want to say is that everybody has psychic gifts. I have seen so many people say like being psychic is really hard. You have to do this, this, and this. Everybody has a psychic gift. I believe that we have the potential to unlock psychic gifts, just period. And it's just us coming back into knowing who we already are. I believe that children come into this life with all of that. Haven't you ever met children that have imaginary friends or children that like say the craziest things? It's because they already have those Claire type abilities, those psychic abilities. And it's not just about seeing into the future. I feel like many people want to classify being psychic as meaning that you just tell the future. So before I actually get into the psychic gift, all the different kinds, and a few tips for you, I also want to share a little bit of my own experience because again, I always feel that on my channel, that's the best thing that I can do is give you like an actual person's experience. I don't have a degree from a psychic school. I can't tell you based on that kind of stuff, having like a specific credential, but I can always tell you based on what I've experienced in my life. So I believe personally that I have clairaudience, which is clear hearing or psychic hearing. And again, we'll talk about the different kinds in a moment. I'm clairaudient. I am also claircognizant. Excuse me. I want to make sure I'm pronouncing these correctly because some of them are kind of hard to pronounce, and I just kind of talk more about like their basic term names normally. I'm looking at my phone right now to pull it out, but I usually just talk about like what they actually do versus their official names, so apologies. But basically, I fall into three categories. Clairaudience is one of mine. So I have clear psychic hearing. I hear things. I also deal with clairsentience, which is psychic feeling. You just feel things. And I also deal with claircognizance, which is clear knowing. So you just have that deep intuitive knowing feeling. I would say claircognizance is probably my strongest out of all of them. I've had that literally my entire life. And I honestly feel this is just my own hot take. So take this for what it is. But I was born and raised Mormon for the first 18 years. I do not follow an organized religion anymore, but I honestly believe, even though they call it different names in the church, I believe that when they talk about like having the Holy Ghost, that is a lot about having claircognizance and having clear knowing, because that to me is like, it's almost like I feel like having religion early on trained me to recognize it. It just was called something different. But that is something that, like, thank you, Mormonism. If I could thank that religion for anything, which is not a lot in my experience. And again, that's not to shit on any of you that are Mormon. If it works for you, I'm happy for you. But for me, like, if I could say thank you for anything, that's probably the one thing, is I actually feel like it honed my intuitive skill in that way, because it was really supported in my household growing up that if you had that deep inner knowing or deep intuition, that it was like, oh, you just know. It was like very trusted, if that makes sense. Even though I believe they are different terms for the same thing, that's something that I feel like through my childhood, Mormonism really honed that in me, and it was never something that was stamped out. And in fact, let me give you one real life example, and then we'll get into everything. But two real life examples. One real life example is that in high school, I had a wallet that was stolen from me. And I don't know if I've ever talked about this on my channel, but I had a wallet that was stolen from me just straight out of my backpack. And I knew without a shadow of a doubt that this wallet was going to come back. I don't know how I knew. I just knew. I was like, I'm going to get it back. It doesn't matter. And this also, you could talk like it was partially manifestation as well, because I believed it so hard, but I also knew. And when you know, you just know. I knew it was going to come back. And my boyfriend at the time, who is actually now my husband, was atheist at the time. He is not anymore. He's a practicing eclectic witch. But he was atheist at the time and like did not believe me. He was like, no. And I was like, no, seriously, like it will come back to me. I just know. And it took a while. It was like a 2, maybe even 3 week period went by. I never like stopped believing. I was like, no, like it really is. Like I just know it's going to find its way back to me. And I got a call randomly that my phone number was like in the wallet somewhere. I got a phone call randomly that my wallet had been found outside of a dumpster. Like it had been thrown into the dumpster and it had fallen out outside of a dumpster. And there was no money in it, which I didn't have any money to begin with. There was no money in it. It was just like a bunch of notes from like friends in school, and my driver's license was in there. And whoever called me, I barely remember the family that called, but they were like, yeah, we just found it while we were out on a walk. It was sitting outside the dumpster. If you want to come pick it up, like we'll hold it for you. And I took my husband, non-believer, with me, and he was so shook. He was like, how did you know? Like, what? And then he was like, of course, it's a coincidence, but we're in a different place now, he and I. But it was just so, I knew without a shadow of a doubt. I could see it. Like, I just knew. I knew it was coming back. And I feel like there are other like strong senses, like where you just know somebody's pregnant before they know or before they tell you. And it's not just like you think and it's a quote unquote coincidence, like you know without a shadow of a doubt. And it's not in everything. I don't have like that's so Raven moments of like, nope, I know that this thing is going to happen. It's just this, it's hard to even explain it if you haven't experienced it for yourself. But there's one example. I have many examples under my clear knowing. But the second thing is with clairaudience. I have a lot of experiences with this as well. But when I knew that my psychic gift of clairaudience was really coming in and trying to present itself to me, something that happened a lot to me is I would get woken up audibly. I would be in the middle of a dead sleep and I would hear either shouting or I would hear somebody like whisper directly in my ear, something of that regard. Like I would hear people literally shouting from across the room, Kloee, like just very Kloee, done. And, or they would whisper in my ear sometimes. That was just like, that happened, and it still happens to this day. To this day, I get woken up like that. It doesn't always feel very good. It's kind of scary, especially because when you're asleep, you're so like discombobulated from like the physical reality that sometimes getting woken up like that. And then I lean over and look at my husband who's like dead asleep. And I'm just like, oh, cool story. Obviously I'm awake for a reason now. But that has happened numerous times. So that might be something that you want to look out for with clairaudience is like, do you get woken up by audio cue a lot? Okay, let's go ahead and talk about the different kinds of clair because those are just like my big 3. But there are more than just that. It's not just being psychic means you have every single gift and you're like proficient with it. Some people it could be that way, but let's talk about the different types of clairs. I'm going to look at my phone for this just so I pronounce them correctly. So the first thing is clairvoyance. This is having psychic sight. So being able to see into the future, having clear visions. This is going to be like your That's So Raven type of thing. Like you just have really clear sight, clear visions. I personally believe that this could even fall into having like very vivid dreams that come true as well. We also have clairsentience, which is that psychic feeling. It's very hard to explain being clairsentient unless you have, or it's, to me, the clear feeling and clear knowing, they're almost on the same thread. So that's going to be your clairsentience and your claircognizance. They almost run in pairs because having clear feeling and clear knowing, it's just, sometimes it is just a feeling but then with that feeling, you also know. So I feel like you could almost put those together in some sense, but that also might be because I harbor both. And so they come together for me. But for some people, it might only be feeling and it might only just be having a very distinct knowing. And then there's also clairaudience, which is the psychic hearing. You will hear things. Even when I read cards, I will hear messages as well. Sometimes people ask me this a lot. Is it in your head or is it out loud? Both. Sometimes it's in my head. Sometimes it is actually verbally out loud. So it just really depends. And then there's the claircognizance, which is the clear knowing. Then there's these two that are kind of hard to pronounce, so I apologize if I'm screwing them up. I do not have these. So there's clairgustance, I think that's how you say it, which is psychic tasting or having clear tasting. And this is so crazy to me. I've met one person in my life that has this so far anyways. And they will like look at colors and they'll be like, oh, yellow tastes like this. Like, or I've also heard that with the next one as well. Like certain things will smell a certain way. And I feel like if you're interested in this type and the next type, that might be a good way for you to test it out, is to look at the different, look at different colors and ask yourself if they have a taste to you or a smell to you that is distinct. So clairgustance, I think is how you say it though. That's going to be psychic tasting. And then there's this is the one that I have a hard time pronouncing for real. Clairalience. I'm so sorry. This is going to be clear smelling. So this is what I was saying with like some people can look at like the color yellow and be like, oh yeah, yellow smells like that. Or sometimes like the smells will bring on like a different kind of clair as well. Like sometimes they interlock and intermingle with each other if you have multiple gifts. I believe everybody has multiple gifts, but some of them are just more pronounced than others. Like for me, clairaudience is really pronounced for me, as well as the other two. But I feel like sometimes the gifts will present themselves naturally to you and things will happen. Something that I also recently learned from this amazing person on TikTok, I will link their TikTok down below. They specialize in tapping, and they were recently talking about on my feed, because I started following them, about how when you struggle with like TMJ and your jaw locking and popping a lot of times, especially if this has come on, a lot of times this is also your clairaudience trying to come in. And that to me blew my mind, because I have also dealt with that before. And sometimes it does crop up periodically when I'm not in tune with myself. I will actually have like more issues with it. So that to me really blew my mind, is because it's not constant for me. It's only sometimes. And I noticed that at the times when I'm not as linked into myself, it tends to flare up. So interesting stuff. All right. So that's the different kinds of clairs. I hope that kind of helped you to distinguish, maybe thinking what you may have. The next thing I want to mention is, if you are trying to figure out what psychic gifts you possess, a really good place to look, and I probably will never make a video on this because there are so many people that have already made them and they're great. You can look at where your moon sign is in astrology. A lot of times your moon sign will reveal your psychic abilities to you. I'm a Gemini moon in tropical astrology, and Gemini specifically rules over the hands. And I believe that this is why I also have that gift to read tarot cards so effortlessly. It's not something that has ever been hard for me. It came really naturally to me. And I feel like that's because I'm a Gemini moon. Like I have that natural ability to use my hands for things. And I'm also very much ruled by the throat, having a lot of Taurus energy in my charts. So you'll also notice that people that have like big 3 in Taurus, usually, or somewhere major in Taurus, usually they will have like really pretty voices that people like. And it can be a singing voice. I cannot sing, but my speaking voice has always been complimented. And I appreciate that. Those of you that tell me that, like, you have such a pretty voice, I really appreciate that. Even when I worked customer care back in like 2010, I would get told constantly by customers, by my employers, like, you have such a voice to be on the phone. And like, it's just like, apparently I have like a really soothing, calming, like different kind of voice. I don't even know how to explain it, but that's something else. You can look to astrology, not just at the moon sign, but I believe you can also look at your major placements and kind of see how they interact. So for me, it makes sense that I would be doing a tarot-based channel with like my Gemini moon gifts, as well as having a lot of Taurus energy in my chart. It's very fitting. And that doesn't mean you have to use your psychic skills in your career. You can use them however you see fit. But if that's something that you want to go into, those might be some things you want to look at. So I'm just going to look at my notes for a moment. So, like I said, there are tons of people that have made videos on what your moon sign tells you about your psychic abilities. I know for sure the Divine Venus has one. And I know that there are others as well, but I know for sure the Divine Venus made one. And then the next thing I have is if you're unsure and you just want to kind of move in and like explore more on psychic gift, just try stuff out. I feel like this is my answer for everything, but just let yourself try things out. You want to try tarot? Try tarot. You want to, there's even like these amazing things that I've seen on TikTok where you can like test your intuition. I say quote unquotes with like testing your intuition because I feel like a lot of times psychic gift also goes hand in hand with intuition. But they'll have like all these card shapes out and they'll say like, which one did I choose? I'll show you at the end. Choose based on your intuition. Don't choose because you think one looks pretty or you think it's what I'm going to choose. Choose based on your own intuition. And 10 out of 10 times I have done this and I have been correct. But just choosing like one of the cards that's laid out. I hope that made sense. Like it's like this account that has, I wish I knew the account name because if I did, I would post it for you, but I see it randomly on my For You page. I don't think I follow the account, but even just doing that, like you can even do like a playing deck of cards to start strengthening your intuitive skills. You can have like a playing deck of cards and maybe have 5 of them that you've pulled out. You know what each one is. Shuffle those 5, put one aside and put the other 4 elsewhere, and then just try to test yourself to see what that 5th one is and really feel into it. I feel like that's a way to strengthen your intuition. And it also gives you the ability as you're strengthening that to have those psychic gifts present themselves to you. Know that, again, everybody has psychic gift. Like literally everybody has psychic gift. It's not something that's just made for special people. Everybody has the ability to tap in, but also know that sometimes it's just not the right time. Like obviously if you have a desire to hone your psychic skill, the desire is there for a reason, but let things come to you naturally. Like for myself, I didn't know I was clairaudient right away. I didn't know I was clairaudient until I was in my early 20s. That took 20 years of my life where I don't believe I was clairaudient. I might have been as a child and just forgot about it, but you know, know that those things will come about naturally. When it first started happening to me, I got scared. That shit scared me. I was like, oh my God, why am I getting woken up in the middle of the night? I've even gotten woken up in the middle of the night with like Egyptian speech, like people speaking Egyptian to me. And that was really interesting. I feel like that's more on like the past life side of things, but just know that like give it time, you know, let things present themselves to you. Don't be afraid to hone your intuitive skills and try different things out, but let things appear to you naturally because that's the best way to not force something to come to you, but let it come naturally. And I know that that's so paradoxical in our modern day society. Like we are such in a masculine form, always forcing going. But the more you can drop down into that flow state and let things come to you naturally, the easier it's going to be to hone in on that skill. So that's what I have for you in terms of psychic gift. I hope this was helpful. If you want more information on psychic gift, I would love to actually do individual episodes on all of the clairs, maybe even interviewing some people that have these gifts, I think would be really cool. But let me know if you want to hear more on that. Please don't forget to follow the podcast if you are watching the video because some of this stuff gets uploaded only to the podcast. Every Tuesday, there's a new episode of the podcast. The podcast also gets these messages, like these videos, in podcast form before the videos even go out. So they get it before y'all too. But that is all I have for you today. Don't forget to follow me on Instagram and TikTok. And do not forget, when you stand up in your own authenticity, you empower everyone around you to do the same. I love you so much. Have a wonderful week.